He built an empire worth billions constructing walls for others. I was the architect who designed spaces to bring people together. We were opposites in every way: race, upbringing, philosophy. But what happens when the man who spent his life creating barriers meets the woman determined to tear them down? As you watch this story unfold, ask yourself, what walls have you built in your own life? By the end, I'll show you how the same principles that transformed a billion-dollar empire can help you break down the barriers holding you back. I remember the day my grandmother took me to see her childhood home, or rather where it used to stand. "Right here," she said, pointing to an empty lot, "is where our community gathered every Sunday." The space had been bulldozed to make way for luxury apartments none of her friends could afford. I was only 12, but something shifted in me that day. I decided I wanted to build spaces that brought people together, not pushed them apart. Architecture wasn't an obvious path for a girl from Southside Chicago. My parents worked double shifts so I could attend a school with an arts program. While other kids dreamed of being doctors or lawyers, I filled notebooks with sketches of communal gardens and affordable housing complexes where no one felt like an outsider. When I finally earned my degree from Howard, I turned down lucrative offers from prestigious firms to start my own practice focused on community-centered design. I believe buildings aren't just structures, they're statements about who belongs and who doesn't. Every blueprint I create asks the same question: who feels welcome here? My designs feature open spaces, natural gathering points, and elements that honor the cultural heritage of the communities they serve. My clients aren't billionaires seeking monuments to themselves. They're neighborhood associations, community centers, and forward-thinking city planners. Then there was him, Robert Garrison, the Wall King, a man who'd built his fortune designing luxury developments and border security infrastructure. The press loved his rags-to-riches story. Son of a construction worker who built a billion-dollar empire with concrete and steel barriers. His company's slogan said it all: security through separation. While I designed bridges, he perfected walls. Our paths crossed at the West Side Revitalization Project meeting. The city had commissioned both of us, me to design the community spaces, him to handle the security infrastructure and luxury residential units. I still remember walking into that boardroom, the only black woman among a sea of suits. Garrison sat at the head of the table, his presence commanding attention without saying a word. "Ms. Washington," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "I've reviewed your portfolio. Impressive idealism, but perhaps impractical for the realities of urban development." I met his gaze directly. "Mr. Garrison, I've reviewed your work as well. Impressive engineering, but perhaps disconnected from the human cost of your designs." The room fell silent. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps. He wasn't used to being challenged. What neither of us realized in that tense first encounter was how our opposing philosophies would collide, connect, and eventually transform us both, along with the very meaning of what it means to build something that lasts. Our professional rivalry became the talk of the industry. Every design meeting turned into a battlefield: his security barriers versus my community spaces, his exclusive amenities against my inclusive gathering areas. The West Side Project became a literal tug-of-war between two opposing visions. Local news dubbed it walls versus walkways. What fascinated me about Garrison wasn't just his success, but the conviction behind it. His company had built security infrastructure for gated communities in 38 states. The controversial border wall contracts had tripled his net worth. His developments always featured the same elements: high perimeters, limited access points, controlled environments. "People pay for peace of mind," he often said. "Safety requires separation." Meanwhile, I was gaining recognition for redesigning abandoned malls into community marketplaces and transforming vacant lots into neighborhood gardens. My TED Talk, Breaking Barriers by Design, went viral, which didn't escape Garrison's notice. At one particularly heated meeting, he slid a printout of my talk across the table. "Inspiring," he said, his tone making it clear he found it anything but. But idealism doesn't stop crime. 3 months into the project, the City Council forced our compromise. The development would proceed with both our designs integrated. We would need to collaborate. Weekly meetings were scheduled, just the two of us, to find common ground. The first session was excruciating. We sat across from each other, my sketches showing open plazas and communal spaces, his blueprints featuring security checkpoints and surveillance systems. "These people need protection," he insisted. "What they need is connection," I countered. What neither of us expected was the moment our fingers both landed on the same spot on the blueprint, a central courtyard where our designs overlapped. Our eyes met, and for the first time, I saw something beyond the billionaire facade. Uncertainty, perhaps, or curiosity. It was the first crack in the wall between us. That momentary connection in the design room haunted me for days. What had I seen in his eyes? Whatever it was, it vanished quickly, replaced by his usual stoic professionalism. Our collaborative sessions continued with the same tension, but now I found myself watching him. The way his shoulders carried an invisible weight, how he absently traced the edge of his wedding ring finger, though no ring had been there for years. Everything changed the night of the Community Feedback Forum. Residents from the neighborhood surrounding our project packed the community center. Emotions ran high as people voiced concerns about gentrification, about being priced out, about losing their home. One elderly man stood shakily, pointing directly at Garrison. "My family has lived here for 4 generations. Your walls will make me a stranger in my own neighborhood." I expected Garrison's usual clinical response about property values and security statistics. Instead, he fell silent, color draining from his face. He abruptly excused himself. Concerned despite myself, I followed him outside. I found him staring at a boarded-up corner store across the street. "My father owned a shop like that," he said without turning, "in East Baltimore. When I was 8, developers came through. Luxury condos. We couldn't afford to stay." His voice had lost its boardroom confidence. 3 months later, he took a construction job on the very building that displaced us, fell from the 15th floor, no safety harness. The revelation stunned me. "So you built an empire on walls because I learned early that this world only protects those who can afford it." He finally turned to me. My father believed in community, in neighbors watching out for each other. It didn't save him. It didn't save us. Something shifted between us that night. Not agreement. Our fundamental beliefs remained opposed, but understanding. The human behind the billionaire had experienced the very displacement my work fought against. His walls weren't just business. They were protection against a pain he knew intimately. Our collaborative sessions changed after that. The arguments continued, but now with genuine listening. I shared stories of my grandmother's displacement, of childhood friends scattered by gentrification. He spoke of clients whose fear drove their desire for security, of his own night terrors after his father's death. "Your community centers are beautiful," he admitted one evening as we worked late, "but they assume the best in people." "And your security systems assume the worst," I countered. Experience taught me caution. Experience taught me connection. We were revising the central courtyard design when his hand brushed mine. The contact was brief, electrifying. Our eyes met, and neither of us looked away. The professional boundaries we'd maintained began to blur. The project itself started evolving. His security features became less obtrusive, integrated more naturally into the environment. My community spaces incorporated subtle protection elements without sacrificing openness. We were creating something neither of us had envisioned alone, a development both welcoming and secure. What terrified me wasn't the growing attraction between us, but how it challenged everything I thought I knew. How could I feel this way about someone whose career represented everything I opposed? Late one night, as we walked the construction site together, the partially built structures creating shadows around us, he stopped suddenly. "What are we building here, really?" he asked, his voice quiet beneath the distant city sounds. I understood he wasn't talking about the development. The wall between us, built of ideology, experience, and competing visions, was crumbling, and neither of us knew what would stand in its place. Word spread quickly about our evolving partnership. The architectural community buzzed with speculation about the unlikely collaboration between the Wall King and the Community Queen. What few understood was how deeply personal this transformation had become. Our first public appearance together at the Urban Development Conference caused a stir. Robert presented our hybrid design approach: security without isolation, community without vulnerability. Watching him speak passionately about inclusive spaces felt surreal. Afterward, a colleague cornered me in the hallway. "You realize you're being used for PR, right? Garrison's just greenwashing his reputation with your credibility." The doubt clung to me like smoke. Was I compromising my values? Back in my community, questions grew more pointed. At a neighborhood association meeting, a longtime supporter confronted me. "We trusted you to fight against men like him, not sleep with the enemy." The crude implication stung, but the underlying fear resonated. Was I betraying those who believed in me? Meanwhile, Robert faced his own opposition. His board called an emergency meeting, concerned about the company's shifting focus. "Security is our brand," his CFO argued. "This community-centered approach risks everything we've built." Investors threatened to pull out when he proposed redirecting funds from a private prison contract toward affordable housing initiatives. One night, he called me, voice tight with rare emotion. "My entire career, I've measured success by the strength of what I build. Now I'm questioning whether I've been building the right things at all." We met at the construction site of our project, now halfway complete. The central courtyard was taking shape, neither fully his vision nor mine, but something new. As the sun set, casting long shadows through the emerging structure, he took my hand. "This could cost me everything," he said quietly. "It already has," I replied. "That's what transformation requires." The following week, Robert called a press conference. I watched from the side as he announced Garrison Development's new direction: secure communities through connection. He outlined, "Our story isn't just about love breaking down one man's walls. It's about the power each of us has to transform systems built on division." Follow the link below to join our community of architects, not just of buildings, but of change. Together, we're not just breaking walls, we're building bridges. A revolutionary approach integrating security features within community-centered design, prioritizing affordable housing units in all future developments, and establishing a foundation to prevent displacement of existing residents. The industry reaction was immediate and polarized. Half his board resigned. 3 major investors pulled out. His stock plummeted. Yet applications flooded in from architects and urban planners, excited by the new vision. My own world shifted too. Some colleagues accused me of selling out. Others celebrated what they saw as converting the enemy. Through it all, Robert and I found ourselves navigating not just a professional partnership, but a personal relationship neither of us had anticipated. "What exactly are we doing?" I asked him one evening, as we walked through the nearly completed courtyard of our project. "Building something neither of us could create alone," he answered. The criticism intensified when our relationship became public. Conservative business publications questioned his judgment. Progressive design journals questioned mine. What they couldn't see was the profound change occurring within both of us. How his understanding of protection had expanded beyond barriers. How my vision of community had grown to acknowledge the need for boundaries. The true test came when the city announced its next major development project, revitalizing the very neighborhood where my grandmother's home had once stood. Robert and I submitted a joint proposal, a fully integrated vision of secure community design. When we won the bid, the meaning wasn't lost on either of us. We would rebuild what had been destroyed, not with walls, but with spaces that honored both protection and connection. Standing at the groundbreaking ceremony, watching Robert speak to residents about preserving neighborhood identity while creating safe spaces for all, I realized we weren't just redesigning buildings, we were reconstructing the very meaning of safety, of community, of home. Our story isn't just about love breaking down one man's walls. It's about the power each of us has to transform systems built on division. Follow the link below to join our community of architects, not just of buildings, but of change. Together, we're not just breaking walls, we're building bridges.